Hi, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us today for our discussion on alternative mobile market currencies. My name is Sam Lev, Program Coordinator for the Mobile Market Coalition. As part of our mission to position mobile markets as equitable solutions for a resilient food system, our monthly webinar series is really focused on disseminating great information and best practices, as well as highlighting experienced mobile markets like we have today, so we can all learn and grow together. We can learn from the experts and not make all the same mistakes that I did when I was running a market a decade ago. Looking forward today to hearing from Elyse Guidas with Farm Express, Lamisha Chambers with Live Health Smart Alabama, and Laurel Burns with the Cooperage Project. I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a minute, but I have a couple of points I'd like to share really quickly before we get started. We're talking today about the various ways that mobile markets utilize innovative and alternative funding sources and currencies to support their customers. Snap Online is a part of what we'll talk about today, but we aren't going to be talking more broadly about Snap EBT, Snap Authorization, or Snap incentives such as Double Up Food Bucks specifically. There are a lot of resources out there related to Snap incentives. Many of you come from states with strong statewide networks. So don't feel like that's the right space. Now, I do know that mobile markets frequently struggle with getting their SNAP authorized retailer applications in and successful, something the Mobile Market Coalition is working on, not only resources to build successful applications, but also in the future, hopefully from a policy perspective, start working on this to pave the way for an actual path for mobile markets to apply, and not like the backdoor work that we do today. So putting a pin in that one for the future. Today's presentation is being recorded. It will get sent out and posted within the Mobile Market Coalition membership dashboard. I said this last month, and it is more true now than ever before. We're in the final stages. I think we're a signature away from opening the Mobile Market Coalition membership to the public. So stay tuned to our newsletter, social media, and website to become a member, learn more about some of the exclusive benefits, and be a part of this great network. Also in the final stages of solidifying some very exciting Mobile Market Summit 2025 news. So keep an eye out on newsletters for that. The other announcement I'd love to share is we are also nearing the launch of our next cohort of Mobile Market 101. If you or anyone you know might be a good fit for this multi-week cohort-based course focused on all things you might need to know to launch a great mobile market from start, from planning to launch. Please reach out. Excited about some changes we've made to that course that comes along with our mobile market operator certification. And then last, I'll be keeping an eye on the chat today, so please feel free to post any questions there along the way, and we'll ask them at the end during a lengthy Q&A session. Hopefully, we've saved plenty of time for discussion and questions, so definitely don't be shy. I have just a quick, let's see, I already shared most of this. I want to quickly show you our agenda today. Yeah, so we'll talk in this order. We'll talk about Snap Online with Elyse, and then Laurel will cover farmers market nutrition programs. And Lamisha is excited to share what she's been doing with the Medicaid OTC cards that I know I'm hearing a lot of questions about. I'm going to stop sharing and let Elyse take it away. I do believe Elyse has some slides to share, so you can cue those up if you want, Elyse, and take it away.
Thank you so much. I forgot I was on mute, of course. I have slides, and I also have a little video, of course, because we had one made for this because it's so technical and wonky. Can everybody see my slides okay?
Yeah, I can see them.
Great. All right. So thank you so much, Sam, the Mobile Market Coalition, for putting this on. I'm really excited to get to know my co-presenters a little bit better and hear about all the great work you all are doing, and share a little bit more about Snap Online. As Sam said, my name is Elyse. I run Activate Food Arizona, which is a nonprofit based in Arizona that works on community-based food system solutions in rural and urban areas. Our mobile markets are called Farm Express. They are located in the Valley, in Phoenix and Tempe, soon to be a third municipality in Mesa, Arizona. And we run year-round service all over senior centers, community centers, schools, libraries, health clinics, anywhere, as you all know, where there's a gathering of people with a barrier to healthy food access. We do a combination of conventional and Arizona-grown produce. We do benefit greatly from sunshine 300 plus days a year, so that certainly helps with our growing season. And it's also very, very, very hot. As I was sharing earlier, it's 108 today, so it's going to be a nice scorcher, which means that sometimes growing produce can be a little difficult. So we do a mix. We want everybody to be able to make the food choices that make sense for themselves and their families. So avocados, bananas, certain peppers that are hard to grow, garlic, things like that are staples for a lot of our community members, and we want to make sure that they have access to those foods through Farm Express. It's an interesting space to talk about Snap Online today, because while Activate Food Arizona has taken a really heavy hand in bringing this resource and technology to retailers in Arizona, our mobile markets right now are not accepting SNAP Online benefits, and that's mostly because we don't currently do a pre-order system. We're not taking orders over the internet or in any sort of e-commerce platform yet. So what I'm going to preface here is totally available for mobile markets and an option for retailers or farmers markets that are interested in getting into the e-commerce space. I will tell you that it's complicated and technical, which you'll see in a little bit, but not at all insurmountable. So excited to dive in a little bit. So Snap Online has been around for quite a while. It was a little bit more niche, and by niche, I mean it only belonged to the markets that had a lot of money. So Walmart and Amazon being the biggest ones, especially during the pandemic, that immediately jumped into this online space as people moved their shopping over to Instacart or other online platforms, even online ordering and pickup. Snap customers were left out unless you were kind of connected to those few small retailers and within a very specific geographical region, which was usually urban areas. So our big charge in the pandemic was to first get some funding to figure out what it was going to take for small retailers and Arizona businesses to be able to accept SNAP Online payments. And then once we kind of created our roadmap, the next step was investing in the actual technology we needed to bring this opportunity to Arizona businesses and retailers. I am happy to say that in Mojave County, which is the top west corner of Arizona, there is a farm there called Rosebird Farm. She also operates a food hub. They were the first certified food hub to be able to offer SNAP Online payments in Arizona. So we are kind of in our year 2 pilot. We've got several retailers in the queue to start next to be able to offer this service to her community members. On its face, Snap Online is just being able to use your SNAP benefits on the internet, right? It takes quite a bit of levers, pulleys, wheels, cogs to make it go. You don't need to busy yourself with this. I'm happy to share these slides, but there's a bunch of different requirements that go in per USDA qualification. So I guess before I kind of jump into this piece, I'll show the little snippet of a video. It's very high level. We created it a couple years ago as we were navigating what this was going to take for Arizona retailers. So bear with me for just 1 second while I pull it up. And I'm not going to show the whole thing just because it's short, but not the best use of our time. Let me see.
While Lisa's pulling this up, if anybody is currently offering Snap Online, would love if you could drop it in the chat just so we know if anybody else is in this space.
Okay, this again is tailored specifically to Arizona, so you're going to hear the word Arizona. That's no bearing on how this technology could be available for everybody else. So let me know if you all can't hear it. Is that video still queued up for everybody?
I see the video.
Okay.
COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically changed the way people shop for food, and the grocery industry expects online shopping to more than double its market share in the coming years. It is no surprise that many small retailers in Arizona are growing their business with e-commerce retail. SNAP customers can order online with many internet retailers in Arizona, but they still have to make payments in person. Not being able to complete checkout online means that both customers and retailers are missing out on the resource-saving conveniences offered by internet grocery. In order for SNAP customers to pay online with their Quest EBT cards, retailers must first meet a long list of highly technical and often confusing requirements, including operating an e-commerce platform capable of handling split tender transactions, and one that integrates the USDA certified PIN entry payment system. All of this means more retailer costs for e-commerce development or added features, as well as additional third-party merchant fees, since debit, credit, and EBT transactions flow through different payment processors. For large retailers, these are mere hurdles. But for many small, healthy food retailers in Arizona, they pose significant barriers to entry, further limiting the online shopping options available to SNAP customers. Activate Food Arizona will be sharing all that we've learned about SNAP Online to build momentum and support for some key factors for success.
I'll stop right there because the rest of it is what we're going to get into in the slide. So thank you for bearing with me on that. Let me reshare my other one. All right, so I shared that briefly, that very high level, just to highlight all of the different kind of levers that went into this initiative. So first, you have to have an e-commerce platform that is able to accept it. As it stands right now, or as it stood when we started this initiative, there wasn't one available. CSAware and Local Food Marketplace are now the two that I'm aware of that are able to, they've passed the USDA requirements. They work with Forage, which is the USDA approved third-party PIN processor. You've got to have a certified, secure area where customers can input their PIN. So that was a huge hurdle. So now we've got two official software platforms that are able to accept this type of tender, which gets into kind of the nitty-gritty of how each of our retailers that we're working with are going to implement this. We specifically worked with Local Food Marketplace to help invest in the technology to get it the rest of the way. So I'm going to only speak a little bit to that front because we haven't worked with CSAware specifically. In addition to whatever your SNAP permit authorization is, some of the SNAP permits are not online accessible. The direct market farmer and the mobile market license or the equivalent delivery route are accessible, but you have to own the inventory. So one of the biggest issues and the hurdles that we have found with retailers, especially for those that just gather orders and then go pick it up from farms, there's not currently a path forward. It's not far away, it's coming, but it's kind of created a different barrier for us for a little bit. So the basic side of it is that you've got to own the inventory. If you're placing online orders, you've got to have a window where people can order. You've got to be able to hold it for a certain number of days. And then certainly you've got to be able to think through delivery or pickup that's accessible for your community. For example, you can't charge delivery fees to the SNAP card. So if you're going to have a delivery fee that's going to have a certain dollar amount attached to it, you've got to have another way to collect that tender, which is why the split payment feature is important. Double Up Food Bucks eventually gets integrated into this as well, making it nice and complicated for you. So again, I think that this is a perfect model to get into if you have a CSA program or if you have some sort of subscription box or pre-order system already. If you're just operating the daily farmer or the daily mobile market where customers are coming up in that day choosing the options, this might be a little bit farther off for you. Again, not insurmountable. There are, of course, fees associated with every software that you use, every transaction that you use. So one of our big things right now is really getting to that true cost of what it's going to take for an Arizona retailer or any retailer of size to scale this up, right? Does it make sense for 400 or more and then you break even? Is it 100 or more? So we're trying to get that break even number a little bit closer to accurate so that we really know how to pitch this and support other retailers in the future who are interested in doing this. So some of the considerations, like I said, hardware and software requirements, you've got to meet certain specifications with an e-commerce platform. Again, certified local food marketplace, CSA aware. A lot of people in the food space already use those two, so I highly recommend it. Forage is your third-party PIN processor, so they are already certified to offer this as well. The biggest challenge that we're facing right now is how to accurately integrate double up food bucks into this model. So it's really easy when it's a dollar for dollar match. I know there are different iterations of this program, even within Arizona, let alone around the country. Our markets do a dollar for dollar match. You spend a dollar, you get a token. You can hold on to those tokens or spend them right there at the market. We do have farms and direct farm stands who offer a 50% discount as their double up model. That one gets a lot more difficult because you are basically issued a discount code, but there's a little bit of a loophole right now with the technology where people could technically get the discount code and then charge it to their debit card instead of their SNAP card. So we're trying to push Forage to kind of close that loop a little bit. But in the meantime, all I mean to highlight is that there is eventually going to be some sort of consideration with an incentive or a token model integrated into an online payment system. The other big thing I would really advise and strongly encourage, just as we do on our markets every day, is talk to your community members about what sorts of food items, what sorts of payment options that they would be interested in seeing. Does it make sense for them to do a weekly online order? Are they more interested in just supplementing once a month? Is it going to be a CSA drop that's going to come to a community location near them, or would they really prefer that delivery to their door model? We've spent a lot of time this year conducting research in different markets to really understand what people want, how often they want it, how much they're willing to pay for it, because we don't want to go in blindly with certainly our retailers that we're working with, but eventually our markets as well, and just make assumptions, right? So as we do with anything on the kind of the grassroots level of what we do with food, talk to the community, conduct some research, get some surveys out there, ask people what they want and how they want this technology to work for them. The biggest thing I see here too is not necessarily the charge for individual markets and individual mobile market operators to advocate and push for this. We all do 50 things already. We're wearing too many hats as we speak. And so the idea to take on this, maybe a little bit of an advocacy or policy push in your state or your region, working with your USDA office, it can be very, very cumbersome. I've got a project lead whose voice you heard on that video, who is like my technical guru for all these things. And I wouldn't have been able to do it with my current staff structure without bringing her on. So the biggest opportunity I see here is the role that farmers and food hubs can play in advocating for more investment in the food system. How do we create regional hubs that offer this technology to smaller markets on an easier scale, help with technical assistance, help with training, normalize this type of work? Again, we know that consumers are using Instacart. We know that they're using online ordering all the time. So how do we bring this technology into the food space and then find additional resources for food hubs and for regional coalitions to kind of take the lead in developing this out? It certainly has been a major lift for our organization, a labor of love, surely, and one that has completely been worth it for our Arizona retailers, but it's a lot of work. And so, given capacity, given seasonality, given funding considerations, I also encourage you to find out who's kind of talking about this in your area. Are there regional food hubs or coalitions or networks that are kind of exploring the technical side of this? And how can you partner with them to kind of be on the forefront of accepting and adopting this technology when it's available for you? So a couple of resources. I'm going to share a link, which I'll do after my presentation. Local Food Marketplace, like I mentioned, they do have a resource page on their website that breaks down from kind of the software side, what to expect. There's a little bit of a slideshow of image grabs from Rosebird Farms, the farm that we worked with, on how this kind of looks from a user standpoint. So when a customer is in there ordering, you can get a sense for what they're looking at, how to integrate their double up model. So I'll share that link in there. Forage, again, is also that third-party PIN authorized provider. And so they've got information. really encourage you. Some of our mobile markets have such incredible relationships with their regional USDA offices. I envy you. So I encourage you to kind of work with them, talk with them about what they're hearing. Think about the different models that you might want to see this in your community or your farmers market or mobile market. Certainly talk to your double up administrator in your town or in your state. How are they thinking about the future of online integration for that model? And then certainly, do your research. Hawaii's got a pretty robust state action plan around SNAP Online. We obviously are available to answer any more technical questions if you're interested in starting this, but also find out who's in your area that's accepting SNAP Online and see how they went through it and how you might adapt that model for your market. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elyse. We'll save, if anybody has any questions, they can drop them in the chat, but we'll save them towards the end so we can get through the super exciting information that both Laurel and Lamisha have. And I will hand it over to Laurel now.
Okay. Bear with me while I figure out how to share my screen because I don't do too many of these little presentations. Let's see here. So while I'm trying to do this, my name is Laurel Burns. I'm with the Cooperative Project, which is in northeastern Pennsylvania. We are kind of different than other mobile markets in the sense that our greater organization, the Cooperative Project, is about much more than the mobile market and feeding folks. We are a community hub. We have youth programming. We have arts and culture, a whole bunch of different things like that. Oops. All right, do you see my slides? Did I make it happen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there in the cover slide, you can see our mobile market van, and that's myself with the customer at actually our very first market location last year. We just launched our mobile market last year, so I kind of laugh inside when Sam says that we're experienced operators on the Zoom today because I don't feel as experienced as some of you. I am no means an expert on FMNP. All I can really tell you is what worked for me and how you can apply it in your particular situation. So what is FMNP? Farmers Market Nutrition Program. Lots of acronyms, lots to keep track of. They're vouchers that help folks afford local produce. They are only good for fruits and vegetables and herbs. The senior version of the program, you can use them on honey, but really the focus is fruits and vegetables. It's been established by the federal government over 30 years ago. And what I didn't realize until I got into kind of getting together more information for today is that the other goal of the program is to expand the awareness and use of farmers markets. So while the focus is on feeding people, there is that secondary goal of increasing our use and participation in farmers markets, which I thought was interesting to know. Moving on. So who is behind FMNP? Where does the money come from and how does it move? FMNP is a federal state partnership program. So for both the WIC version of the program and the senior version, which we'll get into in a minute, the initial funding originates at the federal level of government in the USDA Food and Nutrition Service Agency. FNS then awards grants to the states and territories to administer by whatever state agency they deem appropriate. So for some cases, that could be your state agricultural department. In other cases, it could be a health department. It depends on how your state chooses to administer the program. One of the things that Sam asked us to consider in this presentation is who does this currency serve? And so for FMNP, you're really looking at two different populations administered separately, but in similar fashions. And so first we have the WIC recipients, and some of the differences are on the back end between the WIC and the senior version. 100% of the food costs are covered under the WIC program and 70% of your administrative costs. That's really all like on the administrative piece is on the government side of things, not on the mobile market operator side of things. And under the WIC program, over 1.3 million individuals receive the benefits each year. And You might notice that I bolded the word receive. We'll get to that in a minute, but this is kind of some back-end information on the WIC program. For the seniors, the funding comes from the Farm Bill. For WIC, it came through congressional appropriation, but for the seniors, it's coming from sort of a different part of the government pot of money. And 90% goes towards food costs. So there's like a different breakdown on how that federal money is spent. Again, administration by state agencies. However, one of the differences is that the senior program could potentially be administered by whatever organization oversees aging and older adults. Obviously, that's not going to happen with WIC, but in any event, you'll see throughout my presentation on FMNP that every state does things differently. Over 800,000 seniors receive these FMNP benefits each year. So this slide kind of talks about what mobile market operators really need to know as the differences, or like what you need to consider when you're setting up or applying for FMNP acceptance for your mobile market. The big thing to take away here is that not every state participates. And even if they participate in, say, the WIC version of the program, they might not participate in the senior citizen version of the program. And so it really comes down to you to do your research, to figure out what your state accepts and doesn't accept. And I know that there are some states, when I was looking at the maps on the USDA website to make my slides, there were some states where the state doesn't accept it, but perhaps a tribal organization within that state does. So really kind of do your homework and do the digging. We're talking about two different sets of demographics, obviously, but they are both tied to the income of the recipient. And so they both have the same income level, where the federal government says that folks applying for these benefits need to not earn more than 185% of the federal poverty level. Then the federal government kind of stipulates a minimum benefit amount. For WIC, the federal government says that each state needs to award recipients between $10 and $30 per month. For the senior citizen program, the federal government says that that's between $20 and $50 a month. I don't know why there's a difference, but as an operator of a mobile market, you need to be aware of that difference, because you could be getting vouchers that look the same but are for different amounts. And so you need to kind of monitor that or be aware of that. States are allowed to add to that amount with other funding sources. So, while I can tell you how much Pennsylvania residents are receiving, it could be different in a different state because that state has chosen to augment or supplement the benefit. If you look down in the corner, you'll see for the senior program, that little caveat of except certain states. There are certain states who had programs very similar to FMNP already in place when that program was authorized by Congress back in the 90s. And so they were kind of grandfathered in with whatever their benefit amounts were. So again, just a difference to keep in mind as you're handling these vouchers and working with your customers. So what is the impact of accepting FMNP vouchers? Why should a mobile market push for it? Because sometimes it is a push to get this authorization. And the bottom line, the short answer is that it benefits all of the players in the game. Every piece of the mobile market puzzle can benefit. So for your customers, they're getting increased and improved access to your fresh, locally grown produce. They are improving their ability to redeem the vouchers. If you remember back a few slides ago, I put emphasis on that word receive. And this is really a program where receive does not equal redemption. And in some cases, there's a very large discrepancy between those two statistics. In some cases, redemption rates are less than 40% in a given state or area. So one of the things, Sam and I were talking about this before the actual webinar started today, you kind of need to approach this with a use it or lose it mentality. If the program is not utilized, funding will decrease to the point where it potentially doesn't exist. And so it really kind of is in everybody's best interest if we all kind of learn about it as mobile market operators, and don't be afraid to push to be allowed to participate in this program. One of the biggest reasons for that low redemption rate is simply the inability to get to where the produce is and where the vouchers can be spent. In rural areas in particular, individuals without reliable transportation have extreme difficulty in getting to farmers markets. It might be a challenge enough for them to get to a halfway decent grocery store. So simply being the mobile market and getting out into their neighborhoods is a huge help. We can bridge the gap for folks. That in turn, right, that leads to increased customer counts for our mobile markets, better sales numbers, but also participation in a program like FMNP gives us that positive attention in our communities that goes a long way, especially for a program like mine. We're very new to our area, first mobile market in Northeast Pennsylvania. So something like this that draws positive attention to us really is good overall for all of us. If we at the mobile market are seeing improving sales numbers and customer counts, that's of course going to pass on to our farmers. Our orders might increase with them. They'll have improved customer reach overall. And in some cases, they might be accessing entire market segments that they really weren't reaching before. So really benefits everybody. And then of course, that spreads right across to like all of your farmers and food producers. So I know that we've seen it with our mobile market this year. The seniors in particular, that's who most of our customers are. They come up to our setup, our market setup, and when they realize that they can get their fruits and vegetables for free because they have these vouchers, now that frees up their food spending dollars to buy the things that they might not have bought when they first walked up to us, whether that be milk or eggs or cheese or meat. It kind of changes how they purchase. And so that helps everybody out, even if it's not a farmer or a food producer who can actually accept the FMNP vouchers. So while there's a whole lot of good to the program, there are challenges. And this isn't a knock on the program or anything like that. It's just something as mobile markets that we run into. And that's the farmer focus. The common perception, and this is in the public and farmers and the government, is that the vouchers can be redeemed only by or directly with approved farmers, either at their own on-farm stand or at a farmer's market that the farmer is at in person. And so I'm here to tell you that that is false, but it's also a case of your mileage may vary. Again, I can only speak to Pennsylvania, but as I've kind of poked around to learn all I could in our application process, I have found that there is a lot more information out there on how to apply to receive the benefits as a senior or a WIC recipient than there is information out there for entities to be approved to accept the vouchers. And so you really need to dig and research and find the answers because they're not easy to find. They're not going to be given to you. And the case that I ran into is that the folks within the state government who should have known about these things, even they didn't really fully understand the verbiage behind the program. So it's a challenge. It's a roadblock. I'm not the only one who's experienced it. It's very real. So how I went about applying for the FMNP authorization for our mobile market, it really all kind of successfully started a few months ago when someone in the Mobile Market Network Google group posed the question of how do we get around this roadblock of the farmer-only misconception? And another member of the group responded by describing what had worked for them, and that was to dig around and find the section of federal code that pertains to the FMNP program, and then to use that as justification for their application. And so I have found in our experience that knowing what the law says is super critical to getting a successful result. And so what we have here on the screen is the portion of the federal code that I quoted in our application. This particular section is about the senior program. There is similar verbiage for the WIC version of FMNP as well. But if you look at what it says here, and if you break down the legalese, the law specifically says that wholesalers and resellers are not eligible. That's cool. I get it. That makes sense. And then we can see the allowance made for employees of a farmer. That makes sense. The farmer doesn't always want to man the market stand. He has an employee to do that. But then if you look at the section that I bolded, you'll see that individuals hired by a nonprofit organization to sell produce on behalf of local farmers can also fall under that same exception as an employee of the farmer. And so for my particular mobile market, I know it's not necessarily true for all of them, but for us and for a lot of mobile markets, we would be eligible in that space because we are a nonprofit organization running a mobile market. So then I wanted to find out what my state specifically said about the issue. And this is something that it's another year mileage may vary situation. Every state is going to have this wording in a different place. For Pennsylvania, it's actually part of the application process. The first 2 pages of the application are the part that you fill in, the details, the address, all that stuff. And then the remaining 5 or 6 pages are the guidelines and rules of the program. And it wasn't until I dug into that wording that I found what applied to us. So if you're trying to get this through for your mobile market in a different state, you might find it in different places. It could be the application. It could be state code as opposed to federal code. It's really going to take some research and some digging. In Pennsylvania, this was the verbiage that I took off the application and quoted. Again, you see that that provision for nonprofit community organization. But more importantly, and one of the points that I emphasized in our process of going through this, you see that second bolded section, where necessary to ensure recipients adequate access to farmers markets. And that statement was very important to me as the person filling out the application, because one of the founding principles of our mobile market is to serve the individuals who can't get to the farmers markets. Our county transportation does not operate on weekends. So right there, folks without reliable transportation lose access to all but one of our region's farmers markets. So I really stressed that point in my application process, that we are improving access. Additionally, my research actually led me to the document that was prepared by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and presented to the Pennsylvania House and Senate Appropriations Committee in planning out the current fiscal year budget. And in all of these reports from the State Department of Ag, there were 2 pages that pertain to FMNP. One was statistics, how much funding they had last year and how it was used and all that. But the text that went with it, the narrative that went with it, specifically stated that increasing FMNP and SFMNP check redemption is a goal of the program. And so knowing that the state's Department of Ag wants to improve that redemption rate really reinforced my cause and gave me, some validation and some fuel for my fire here to drive me to keep pushing on this. So again, you've got to research, you've got to find all the documents, find the wording, and use that to help you. So on this slide, I really just kind of boiled everything down as to kind of a checklist of sorts on how to go after FMNP authorization for your mobile market. Some of this might seem a little common sense, and why is she mentioning this? And I do that because I think to make this successful, especially only roadblock, or if you've tried and been declined in the past, you want to go into this process with all of your ducks in a row. You want to get everything laid out and ready to go. And I approached it with the philosophy that I am going to give them everything they ask for, along with anything they might ask for. So that's kind of the thought process I had in doing this. So first, you want to find out if your state even participates, because remember what I said, some will do senior but not WIC, and vice versa. And also identify the responsible department or agency, plural, right? Because they could be administered by different programs. And then within that, number 2, you want to find the name of the individual who oversees the program. That might seem like, why bother, right? But I think that there is value in knowing who you're speaking to. In my case, that person was instrumental in the approval process. I don't know how many people are on her team as to how the decision is made, But it really kind of worked in our favor that I was speaking directly to her. And interestingly enough, in Pennsylvania, this particular individual was new to the position last year. And last year really wouldn't even like entertain the discussion because it was so new to her onboarding, and she just wasn't in a place to handle anything that felt a little different or special. So finding out the name of the person helps. Number 3, find your state code that pertains to it and defines what entities can accept it. Look for the wording. You will either be defined as like an approved entity, or you will find your place in an exemption or an exclusion. So find how you fit into whatever they have out there available as legalese. Similarly, number 4, have on hand the FMNP section of federal code to include in your application. After the webinar today, I'm going to put together a couple links to send to Sam that can be put out, disseminated with the recording of this. And I will include that federal code so you can all find it to include. Number 5, gather your supporting materials. Because I was kind of leaning into that allowance for nonprofit organizations, I didn't even wait for them to ask. I just included our 501c3 determination letter for the organization. So anything supporting you, just include it, just send it along, or send it as an attachment to that top dog head honcho, however you have to do it, just to show that you're prepared and you're serious. Number 6, a cover letter that spells out why you're eligible. Again, it's going to depend on the methodology of your application, but my experience is that there's only so many spaces on that application. There's only so many ways that I can justify why I'm applying and why I'm wasting your time with this. And so sending some kind of cover letter or introductory letter or whatever really kind of lets you state your case. And it lets you cite the code that you're leaning on to support you. And I did. I literally quoted word for word the federal code and then the verbiage from the state's own application, because my thought was if they're putting it out there and if it's the law, then they need to abide by that. And then just one last thing, I have one last slide for you to keep in mind and remember. You might be setting a precedent with your work. You might be setting the stage for other mobile markets or other nonprofits in your state to do this same thing. And so again, this sounds really common sense, but honestly, we all need to work together and we all need to kind of have a good image for the whole purpose, right? So number 1, be diligent with your follow-ups and your requests for clarification. I had to gently nudge the state contact when I had a couple weeks of radio silence. You've got to be diligent. You've got to show that you're not going to walk away without an answer. Number 2,
Laurel,
of course,
really quickly, I'm sorry. Can I put a pin in this? I appreciate it. I think we're running a little long, and Lamisha's got a hard stop at 1
okay.
o'clock.
Sorry about that.
Fine. One final thought, maybe.
Just do the research and dig and be relentless.
Okay.
That's
I'm gonna pitch to Lamisha now. Thank you so much, Laura. I am really sorry to cut you off. I know everybody wants to hear both from you and about these OTC cards. So I am happy to stick around for a few extra minutes. We can ask questions. I know Lamisha is going to have to go, but we will make sure everyone gets their questions answered and followed up. If you have to go at 1 o'clock, feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we will address them in this video. And you can go back and watch the recording at a later date. Thanks so much, Laura.
Yep.
So apologies, guys. I have another meeting that starts at 12 o'clock here Central Standard Time, so I have to hop off. But appreciative of this opportunity. Unlike my great co-presenters, I did not create a PowerPoint. I normally run way off script when I do so that would have not been entertaining for any of us. But my name is Lamisha A.G. Chambers, and I serve as the Operations Director for a program here in Birmingham, Alabama, known as Live Health Smart Alabama. We are the inaugural Grand Challenge winner of a call to action that was put out by President Ray Watts back in 2019, where he wanted someone in the UAB community to try to find a solution for what is chronic disease here in the state of Alabama. We hover around the bottom half of all health rankings. And so Live Health Smart Alabama has set out with its initiative to educate the communities on the importance of good nutrition, prevention and wellness, physical activity, and just overall education. So I have the great fortune of running our mobile market. It is not the first of its kind here in Birmingham, but it's the first of its kind as it relates to a university running a mobile market. And so like many of my colleagues, I also have a 501c3 status. And so what we are doing is we're providing communities that are in what are considered food deserts an opportunity to come out and shop on this mobile market. It is filled with nutritious food options only. So we're a little bit different from your traditional grocery store. We're going to have an entire wall of fresh produce that follows the harvest calendar. Then we're going to have an entire wall of healthy pantry staples, healthy dairy items, and then lean proteins. And so we are one of the only mobile market that I'm aware of here in the state of Alabama that accepts the ProHealth Solutrain benefit card for United Healthcare and Humana covered lives. And so it was a relationship that was established. My former life, I came from the for-profit world in which I worked with behavioral health at one of the large hospital systems here in Birmingham. And so having some connections with some of the insurance providers, I've gone back and leaned on those relationships. And so when I determined, or when I found out that there was this benefit card that you could purchase what are considered healthy items exclusive of just, your Band-Aids, your alcohol and things of that nature, I tried to do a little bit more investigating to understand how that could work and what it looked like. And that was how we got an opportunity to connect with ProHealth and receive the terminal to be able to process those cards. And essentially what we did was we became a part of the S3 network. And so with that, you sign on to get a terminal that accepts the benefit card. Many of the people that get this food card, they are going to get anywhere between $40 and $140 per month. And they are able to come onto our mobile market and utilize those funds alongside, any EBT, cash credit, or whatever their other payment sources may be. One of the good things that I like about this terminal is that we do not have barcodes on any of the items that we are scanning as it relates to the checkout process with our mobile market. And so what Solutrain did was they created a barcode system. And they, in turn, gave us their barcode system so that when one of the items that is on their list is scanned, it automatically registers that item as an item that's appropriate for use by the person that has that benefit card. It doesn't have a lot of fees associated with it. I think we paid roughly $350 to get started, and we essentially have to pay a 75-cent tax fee and a 2% transaction fee for all transactions that take place with that benefit card. But I'll kind of give you a little inside tidbit. What has happened is, because we are a mobile grocery store that is a nonprofit organization, United Healthcare also has a foundation in which they give out grants. And so we were awarded a grant that essentially covers the fees associated with the purchase of the terminal and any taxes or additional fees that we would incur as a result of us having that terminal on our mobile market. So essentially that grant covers all of the costs associated with that. Since we started, our mobile market is still pretty new. We started in the summer of 2021. So we're a little bit over 3 years old at this point, and we've served roughly around 7,000 customers. So we did not formalize our relationship with Solutrain until the spring of this year. And since that time, about 6% of our overall customers, our overall shoppers, are people that are using this healthy benefit card. And so we've seen a produce increase of about 14% of produce shoppers as a result of us having this card on the market. So they're buying the right things, but I guess it also helps that they can only buy limited items, so they don't have much of a choice. In the neighborhoods and the communities that we're visiting, about 44% of those folks utilize EBT as their primary source, their primary payment source for grocery items. And so we have a large group of folks that have said, I'm on a fixed income, but I only get $18 a month on my EBT card. So, without my benefit card from United Healthcare, I probably would have to choose between paying for my medicines and buying my groceries. And then it also helps that you come right to our front door. So that's been very rewarding for us. I know outside of us here in Alabama, Walmart accepts that card, but it oftentimes gets very confusing when they're using it at Walmart because, of course, there are items that you cannot purchase with that benefit card. That was a very rushed presentation of kind of what we do and how it works there with us, but I will drop my email into the chat. If anyone wants to have further discussion about it, feel free to share an email with me and we can connect and talk about it.
Whew, thanks, Alicia. Wow, so much information. That was fantastic. There was one question while you're while we're wrapping up here. Steph asked if you use S3 not just as the terminal, but as your point of sale as well.
Our point of sale is actually Square. So we have the S3 terminal, we have our EBT terminal that also takes the credit and debit cards, and then we accept cash, but our overall point of sale system is loaded into the Square system.
So you have to ring things up twice in essence then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have very patient mobile market managers.
I had to do the same in Virginia with Snap because we had a paid for Snap terminal, but we didn't use it as our point of sale as well. So I'm familiar with the hang up.
Yeah.
This question might be for Lamisha or anybody if you have to jump, but I know she was just getting started over there in Kansas with EBT, and they're looking maybe for the right terminal. So does anyone want to share what EBT terminals they use?
So I'm not the right one to answer that one, Lauren, because I cannot remember at this point in time the name of the terminal. So sorry.
A lot of folks use Clover. That's one of the big ones these days, I know.
Yeah.
We use Square for our point of sale, and then we process Snap transactions through the Total Pay Go system.
Total Pay, that's the
Total
name of it. Thank you, Laurel.
You're welcome.
Does anybody in our remaining minutes have questions, especially I think for Lamisha, who's got a hard stop here?
Lamisha, I have a question. I'm super fascinated by the OTC card. I'm trying to get more information, but everybody keeps either telling me it's not available in Arizona or it's specific to a plan. Do you know if United Healthcare, it's like if you have United, it's everywhere, or is it United holds the contract in Alabama for Medicaid and Medicare?
So it's an HMO. It's not just United. So it can be United, it can be Humana, it can be Blue Cross. It just depends on, but have you gone onto the website to do the investigation, or are you calling?
A little bit of both. So we're funded through healthcare, and so I'm just kind of curious if the requirement is more that the state, Medicaid and Medicare deem the card. So it's it's the plan driven to provide this.
Right, because I know people in Georgia that have this benefit card and they
don't have Medicaid or Medicare.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So let's connect, and then what I'll do is I'll probably just connect you with my person and let you talk through your questions with him, because we have a really good guy that helps us out.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was something, Lamisha, we talked about when we first met. Thank you so much, Lamisha. I really appreciate it. We'll follow up.
You're welcome. You guys have a great day.
I will say that's something that when we first started talking about this in preparation for this presentation, I think the biggest tip Lamisha had was like, find the person within the system that feels passionate about the work, that is mission aligned. And I think that opened a lot of doors early on for her, was having the right relationships to get started and, say yes. Anybody have any other questions for any of our presenters? Now is a good time for it. Great. Hearing none then, I will say thank you all so much for joining us today. So glad you could make it. I know these are a lot of like sticky wickets for folks to figure out and kind of expand on to best serve their customers. So I hope this information was helpful in getting you started in the right direction. Always available. I will contact us at mobilemarketcoalition.org. I can drop it in the chat, but feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'll be sending this recording out within the next, 48 hours, I hope. We will have another webinar. I'm expecting October or early November on storytelling. So as we wrap up our season, really want to bring in some folks to talk about how we gather impactful stories from within the customer base that we serve to to help us paint the picture along with our data on how we're doing. So keep an eye out for that and all the other exciting stuff I shared at the beginning of this presentation. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great day.